In this screencast, I'm going to talk to you about thesis statement, which is something that you've learned in the past and you've probably been taught every year, but some of you told me that you would like to have a little refresher. So I put together this Prezi, which is going to show you, when I think about thesis statements, there's really 6 concepts or 6 facts about a thesis statement that I want you to understand. And then I'm going to show you 3 examples of thesis statements, one that I would consider to be a partially proficient thesis statement, one that's proficient, and one that's advanced. So let's start out with what it is. This is something you probably already know, but hopefully it's a review. First of all, a thesis statement is a statement. It is not a question. You cannot end your introduction with a question. You have to tell us the main idea or the focus of your piece of writing. In this case, it's an essay. So it's a statement of the main idea. It states that main idea as a fact, and this is something that I have had students struggle with in the past. Yes, it is your analysis, your opinion, your interpretation of our essential question, but you're going to prove it with evidence. So you state it as if it was a fact. Yes, maybe somebody would disagree with you, but you are going to state your thesis as a fact. Another way to think of it is that it is a claim that you'll spend the rest of your essay supporting with the specific examples from the text, whether it's quotes or paraphrasing an event that happened. You will back up your claim with evidence. The next thing I want you to know and understand about a thesis statement is that it should not be an obvious statement. And if you write something like these 3 bullet points here, I will smack your face off. This is the kind of thesis statement that I might expect to see from a 3rd grader, a 4th grader. We no longer will you say something that's this obvious. In this essay, I will be writing about, or this essay will prove, or the topic of this essay is. No. If your ideas are strong and your organization is clear, you should not have to tell me what you're about to say. Just say it. Don't tell me what the writing is going to be about. Just write it. Don't tell me what the essay is going to prove. Just prove it. Get to the point. And another thing I want to quickly mention is that you cannot say I in an essay. In an analytical essay about a novel, in this genre of writing, it is not appropriate to say I. You're going to say the reader, but you're not going to say I. So we know what a thesis is, and we know that it can't be super obvious, like coming out saying, in this essay, I will be writing about. Okay. So another thing I want you to understand is that a thesis is more than simply a statement of a topic. The thesis states your interpretation, or your analysis, or your opinion on the topic, not just the topic itself. So I've written 2 examples here to show you the difference. This first one is simply a topic. It's not a thesis. Authors use specific techniques to create empathy in their readers. Okay, that's a topic. We're going to be talking about empathy and the techniques that are used. This is more than a simple statement of a topic. This expresses an analysis that the writer has done that they're going to prove. John Boyne allows his readers to empathize with the characters in The Boy in the Striped Pajamas through a skillful use of dramatic irony, foreshadowing, and his unique choice of narrator. That is the writer's interpretation, the writer's analysis, and they're going to prove it and they're going to back it up with evidence. The next thing I want you to understand is that a thesis, a strong thesis, will identify some subtopics. And it should always give those subtopics in the same order that they're going to show up in the body paragraphs. So, for example, the same thesis statement I just showed you before, John Boyne allows his readers to empathize with the characters in The Boy in the Striped Pajamas through a skillful use of dramatic irony, foreshadowing, and his unique choice of narrator. You should expect, as the reader, that the very next paragraph that would come right here, the very next paragraph, the first body paragraph, would be about dramatic irony and how it creates empathy. The second body paragraph would be about foreshadowing and how it creates empathy. And the third and final body paragraph would be about choice of narrator and how that creates empathy. They need to go in the same order. The next thing I need you to understand is that your thesis shouldn't give it all away. By reading your thesis, your reader should understand your main point and what you're going to prove, but they should also need to read on in order to agree with your analysis. You don't put a whole bunch of evidence to back up your ideas in your thesis. The thesis is just kind of rolling out the main idea that the rest of the essay is going to be about, but you spend the rest of the essay supporting it, proving it. So your reader should want to read on to see how you're going to prove it. And lastly, I'm sure you guys know this already, but just to be safe, your thesis is the last sentence of your lead in this kind of writing, of your introductory paragraph. I don't know if anyone's ever talked to you about why it's the last sentence, or if they just told you it's the last sentence. But the reason it goes there is because letting your reader know the main focus of your piece up front, in the beginning, makes your ideas easier to follow throughout the rest of the essay. It also creates a predictable organizational structure. If we go back to this point, you're giving them a predictable organizational structure. Not only are you telling them what you're going to prove, but they can trust that you're going to prove it in the same order that you mention it in the subtopics. Predictability is comforting. It makes your reader feel smart. It makes them feel confident, and it primes their brain. It gets them ready to follow what you're going to say. So that's why we want to end our lead with our thesis, and it kind of says, hey reader, this is where I'm going to take you. Clear communication, as we've said all year, is powerful communication. If your communication is confusing, if it seems like it's a surprise when you mention something, that's not powerful communication, it's distracting. So we've learned that a thesis, we've learned that it's a statement that is your interpretation of a topic, your analysis of a topic, that you will spend the remainder of your essay proving. We've learned that it shouldn't be stated so obviously, like I will show you that, or this essay will be about, but it simply comes out and states what this essay will be about. We've learned that it should have subtopics, and those subtopics should be listed in the same order you're going to discuss them. We've learned that it shouldn't be super detailed. The reader should have to read on to figure out why you interpreted the topic the way you did, and to feel confident that you've proven it. And we've, again, been reminded that it goes in the last sentence of the introductory paragraph so that it sets your reader up to know what to expect. Now let me show you a few different thesis statements. These are all possible thesis statements for an essay on the boy in the striped pajamas. And let's start with the one that I consider to be partially proficient. The author uses dramatic irony, foreshadowing, and revealing personal details to make you feel empathy. Think about that. Think about why that might be partially proficient. We'll come back to it. I'm going to show you a proficient one next. John Boyne uses the techniques of dramatic irony, foreshadowing, and revealing personal details very efficiently to make you feel empathy for the characters throughout the whole book. Why is that proficient and the one before was partially proficient? Think about it. Now let's look at one that's advanced. John Boyne allows his readers to empathize with the characters in The Boy in the Striped Pajamas through a skillful use of dramatic irony, foreshadowing, and his careful development of complex characters. Let's go back to the partially proficient one and see if you can feel the difference. The author uses dramatic irony, foreshadowing, and revealing personal details to make you feel empathy. It's complete. That's why it's not below proficient. It is a complete thesis, but what are we lacking here? What could we do a better job at? How could this be solid? Look at the difference when we move to this one. What does this one have that this one didn't? And when we go to the advanced, The difference between the advanced and the proficient is subtle. It's communicating the same ideas. It's in the subtlety of the wording, the smoothness of the wording. And one thing I want you to notice is in both the partially proficient and the proficient, look at this phrase, revealing personal details. Yes, that's the phrase we used when we were discussing it in our novel study discussions, but when we go to write this piece of writing, this analytical essay, this phrase, revealing personal details, maybe that's not the smoothest way to say it. Maybe there's other ways you can communicate the same idea, but in a way that flows more smoothly in your entire thesis statement. You see how I changed it a little bit in the advanced one? I changed it to his careful development of complex characters. Now, when I go into that body paragraph, I'll discuss that he reveals personal and private details about the characters in order to make them complex and develop them fully. But in my thesis, it just flowed better to describe it that way because my reader might not understand, the reader of my essay might not understand what I mean by revealing personal and private details. Okay. I hope this helped you understand how to write a strong thesis.